You see that Donald Trump is tariffing movies now? Well, he wants to. He said he wants to. Nobody really knows what's going on, so. The movie industry in America is dying a very fast death. Other countries are offering all sorts of incentives to draw our filmmakers and studios away from the United States. Hollywood and many other areas within the USA are being devastated. This is a concerted effort by other nations and therefore a national security threat. Remember, the only way Trump can impose tariffs all in his lonesome is by designating it a national security threat. That's the, legal artifice. That's the justification. So everything's a national security threat all the time. Therefore, I am authorizing the Department of Commerce and the U.S. Trade Representative to immediately begin the process of instituting a 100% tariff on any and all movies coming into our country that are produced in foreign lands. We want movies made in America again. So obviously, this is completely meaningless. Movies aren't a physical good moving through ports that can be subjected to duties and customs and tariffs and what have you. They're movies. You know, if he was making a point about how a lot of American movies are made in other countries, that would be true. There has been a lot of outsourcing in regard to where the movies are being shot or who's doing the VFX work or whatever. But there's still American movies that are then being exported to other countries. I mean, the funny thing is, this is one of the only industries where America actually has a trade surplus. We produce the movies everywhere, all over the world. We make the movies. We're the center of culture. Anyway, it doesn't make a difference because there's no way this can be implemented. It doesn't make any sense. But further adding to the idea that Trump basically just has no handlers and he says whatever he wants and he's incredibly easy to influence. Apparently, one guy gave him this idea. One single guy, Juan Guy. John Voight reportedly gave Trump the idea for those wild movie tariffs. Apparently the brainchild of actor John Voight. Oh yeah, he's super racist? Yeah. He's one of Trump's special ambassadors to Hollywood alongside Mel Gibson and Sylvester Stallone. So, you know, how would you even define what country a movie was produced in? This is an unenforceable tariff proposition. It's not coherent. There's not really a version of this that could be done. It's not a matter of would they do it? They'll do anything, right? It's a matter of is it even possible? It doesn't make sense. It's semantically not sensible. It doesn't work. NBC News reported late last month that Voight and his manager, Stephen Paul, had put together a proposal for Trump to reinvigorate the American film and TV industries. Details were slim, with one potential suggestion being federal tax incentives to keep production within the United States. I don't think Voight has acted in Hollywood for years. It's Sylvester Stallone, Voight, and Mel Gibson. These people are being selected for their racism, not for their prominence within the industry. Stallone is racist? Well, he's a devout Republican, isn't he? I'm not going to be that charitable. Listen, I love Rocky. Just come on. What about Arnold? Arnold Schwarzenegger? Have you seen his Twitter? All he does is criticize Trump. And Mel Gibson's basically a Nazi. Why doesn't he get Chris Pratt? Kids love that guy. Yeah. It's true that film jobs, especially in California, have declined significantly in recent years because of high production costs and fewer incentives. Doesn't matter. Can't really be implemented. Still pretty funny. I mean, you can apparently just go to Trump and bring any idea to him and it'll run, you know? Funnily enough, though, even the threat of a Trump tariff on movies, as nonsensical as it is probably going to really spook the already pretty tumultuous film industry, which has not recovered since COVID. If you had 10 minutes with Trump, what would you convince him of? I feel like you could get him to endorse a dictatorship of the proletariat in 10 minutes because he's genuinely senile. You just have to phrase it the right way. And I don't think that's because I'm specially convincing or anything like that. I just think his brain is melted. I think you could do basically anything with him. 10 minutes to talk to him, I think you can convince him of basically anything. It's called super capitalism. Yeah, I think he'd fall for it.
Another industry. Over the weekend, he said he's going to be putting 100% tariffs on movies made outside the U.S. He went so far as to call foreign film production a, quote, national security threat.
Now, the president did not provide any details on which movies would be affected, those on streaming services, and how the tariffs would be implemented.
Investopedia editor-in-chief Caleb Silver joins us now with more on the state of the economy. So let's start with this movie thing. We don't have a lot of details yet right now, but obviously the goal would be to bring production of movies and whatever back to the U.S. Sounds like a good idea, but this is a complicated thing, right?
Yeah, maybe the Alcatraz idea was inspired. Maybe he was watching that because this is a...
Oh, yeah, he said he wants to reopen Alcatraz as well, to house our prisoners there, except Alcatraz has been a museum for 50 years. More than 50? It's not a prison. It's not a prison anymore. It can't really be turned into a prison, I guess, not without years and years and years of work. They always try so hard to sane-wash his bullshit. Dude, unironically, why don't non-Fox News media why don't these companies ever just embed the image of Trump's Truth Social posts? Like, he looks and sounds like a lunatic every time he says anything or posts anything. But they always sanewash him by summarizing what he said, or like implying that it's bad but not really showing the totality of it. He looks like a psychopath. Fear, I assume. They're not going to get in trouble for just posting his Truth Social posts. All they have to do is post it. They don't even have to say anything about it. They could just respond to it as though they hadn't posted it.
A hooray for Hollywood moment here. Production, especially in Hollywood, is down some 40% in the last decade because studios have been making movies in places like Toronto, Vancouver, Poland, the United Kingdom, because it's a little cheaper there, right? And sometimes it's a little easier when you talk about union rules and you talk about limits for production. And when you think about the movies that are made based here and there, how is that going to work? He wasn't clear on whether that was streaming services or not, but he's bringing in some heroes to help him sort it out. Jon Voight, Sylvester Stallone, and Mel Gibson. Those are supposed to be his ambassadors for Hollywood. Apparently, they're going to solve the problem along with Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary.
Yeah, anybody who's covered, Hollywood knows there have been a lot of middle-class production jobs that have been lost over the past few years, especially post-COVID. So maybe that's something to do with it.
I guess they're in favor of it. It is true, of course, that a lot of these jobs have moved out to Vancouver or wherever else. Don't really know what that has to do with tariffing foreign movies, but, this also doesn't solve the higher cost of production in America. Oh, you're telling me that it's almost as though the fact that different countries will have different expenses and costs of living and costs of doing business is just an unavoidable fact of having a global economy, and that even if you didn't have a global economy, you would just see this pattern of redistribution happen domestically, like the same way that shooting has been moved from California to places like Atlanta over the past 10, 15 years. Because of the incentives there. Like, no matter what, businesses are always shifting around to try to find the cheapest place to do business. And there's actually no way to fix that without, like, either extremely strict top-down command economy type shit, or you just acknowledge as a fact of the economy and try to redistribute wealth as necessary. Anyway, the movie industry is kind of cooked anyway. Never recovered since COVID. Movies are staying in theaters for like 2 weeks before making it to DVD and streaming services. Streaming services are at the same time too expensive and too cheap. Just, it's not, the movie industry is unironically like 4 huge flops in a row away from total ruin. Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm not mad at movies going to streaming quicker. I hate going to the theater. Yeah, it's just like that process of wealth extraction has really hurt a lot of people in the industry, including the industry itself. But it's also like, I don't know, maybe they should try making good movies. Yeah, but they can't make good movies for exactly the reasons we're describing. They need the biggest possible return on all of their investments, which means that they have to go for safer and safer movies. Like, that's the issue, right? Like, the issue is that we have kind of like a bunch of incentives for the big studios to consolidate and play it safer and safer and safer, which lowers the quality of and broadens the appeal of their movies. I mean, we saw this happen with Marvel to an extent. You ever gone back and watched the original Iron Man? The original. I mean, the Marvel Studios production from 2008. It's pretty good. Genuinely. I wouldn't say it's daring, but it's actually pretty good. Like, there was a directorial vision. There was like a voice to it, like a tone, I guess. Like it didn't feel like it was written by committee. At least not that much, It I don't know. It felt human. It's pretty good. But over time, I remember seeing a video that sometimes Hollywood cranks out horror movies because they're cheaper to make and they make their money back. Yeah, why do you think, is it A24? I'm sorry, I'm not a big, movie buff. What's the studio that, gives money out to basically anyone? They fund a lot of, small movies and make a bunch of... It's A24? Okay, yeah, they do a lot of horror movies. And horror movies do tend to be cheap. It's easy to play on people's emotions at a low budget when that's the format you're working with, right? So they tend to, you get me. So greed has killed the film industry? No, it's not greed, actually. I don't like the attribution of these material causes to greed because it implies that it was just, the wrong greedy people on top, when in reality, it's a superstructural problem, right? You could have put better people in charge of Marvel Studios or Disney or whatever, and the same basic thing would have happened. You could put, hell, a socialist or whatever in charge of these studios if you want. But there are underlying problems that go beyond that, I mean, certainly the people on top are greedy, but what I mean to say is that, it's kind of like accusing a ball of having a tendency to drift downhill when you set it on a slope, right? Like it is going downhill. It does have that tendency, but you know, the advancement of gaming tech replaced perhaps. Sure, but the same thing is happening in the games industry. Why do you think we don't have AA games anymore? In terms of big releases, we have indie games, which are goated, right? You know, when they are at least. You have AAA, mega blockbuster, super ultra hyped studio backed games that take like 8 years to make or whatever. Everyone looking forward to GTA 6. That's the big obvious example, but there are, you know, we've had a trend towards that. One thing we don't have anymore is like the AA game. Look at how the original God of War games were relatively modest. Then there's a break, and then kablamo. The new God of Wars come out, and they're huge. Not to say that the original God of War games were like small indie productions or anything like that. They weren't, but we don't really have like a AA range anymore. At least not in the West, and it's not as popular as it used to be. You also have Nintendo games, which are kind of their own category, I guess. There was a AA RoboCop game recently. Yeah, though it didn't get that much hype when it came out, did it? Unfortunately. Yeah, it's the gutting of the middle class of media, basically. Because it used to be like a bell curve, right? Where like in terms of popularity, you had some like really small games that blew up and a lot of AA games, and every once in a while a AAA game would come out and really blow the socks off of everyone. But nowadays you have like this dip in the middle where you have a ton of indie games that get big, right? And then you have the AAA like big studio games, and then you have like a trickling of AA games that really pop off, you know? I don't know. I'm speaking generally about a broader trend, but it's a missing middle issue, and it happens with blockbuster studios as well, right? Last year's box office total just 8.75 billion, a 3% decline from 2023, and well off the 11 billion pre-pandemic average. That's rough, man. That is rough. Vosh, No More Heroes is AA and pretty good. You are describing a game that came out, what, 14 years ago? When did the first No More Heroes come out? I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm not inviting all of you to list every AA game in your mind. Baldur's Gate 3 was AA? No, Baldur's Gate 3 was AAA. Easily AAA. 100%, yeah. It cost like $100 million. Expedition 33 is AA. Why are we talking about this? This isn't what we're talking about, okay? You're distracting me. Jesus. Tell the devs that, Vosh. Baldur's Gate 3 called itself AA. I'm not going to tell the devs that because I don't know them and I don't care. What are you talking about? Why are you arguing with me about this? You're missing the forest for the trees. You're insufferable. I hate all of you. Now listen, okay? These industries are due for a collapse. And I don't mean due for a collapse in the sense of like moral retribution. I mean due for a collapse in the sense that like we're trending towards a set of incentives that are really bad. It's worse with the film industry because nobody buys movies anymore. Everyone just streams them once and that's it. There's an oversaturation of what's available to watch, and a lot of it's really not that good. You know? A lot of people just, you know, they wait for it to come out on streaming, they watch it at home once or whatever. I don't know. The tariff on movies comes with a double whammy of China no longer importing movies. Yeah, that's true. Is pirating part of the problem? For movies? Probably not. At least not to a huge extent, I guess. Pirating is the solution? No, it's not. One of the big issues with the movie industry, in my opinion, is that, like, okay, relative to the games industry, you do not have to be that much of a gamer. You don't have to be that keyed in on the scene, I guess, to be familiar with not just some cool indie titles, but also, like, ways to keep abreast of future good indie titles, right? Like, the environment around gaming kind of fosters a lot of discussion there. I don't know how much that exists for movies. You know what I mean? Like, I guess if you want to draw equivalencies, people who only go to the movie theaters to watch like the big, you know, here's the big children's movie to watch with your kids, so they shut the fuck up about it because they've seen like advertisements about it or their friends have seen it. Here's like the big Marvel movie, like stuff like that. They go to the theaters like 2 or 3 times a year, maybe 4 sometimes. Lava Chicken, exactly. You've got those people, and those are like the movie equivalent of the guys who say they play games but they only play like FIFA or the newest Call of Duty. But I think that if you're looking at the average person, there would be more of the former than the latter. Like, we talk about like, oh, these people who only play FIFA or something, but I think that the majority of people, if you're going to talk about like games with, like if they play games, you talk about games with them, there's probably a little bit more like investment in the industry. Does anyone care about the movie industry and like the indie titles that it produces outside of like really auteur film goers? Because I've met so many people who are like, yeah, I have strong opinions on these indie games. Here's my opinion on the scene. And I know there are people like that for like smaller film festivals and stuff, but there aren't that many, are there? Like, I don't know. Maybe that's just my perception. Maybe that's just the people I've made friends with, because I'm not much of a moviegoer. But it does seem like there's not as much investment in the craft in a lot of spaces. I don't know. It's different here in France, mostly due to public grants. Yeah, that's true. It's different in other countries, especially non-English speaking countries, because if you want domestically produced media in your own language, you're kind of limited to your smaller scene, which probably gives you a more personal feel to what you consume and produce, right? At least sometimes, you know? It's not even a matter of investment. It's just that by virtue of not being English speaking as your first language, you might defer more towards media that is made with your language and culture in mind. I don't know. Aren't you literally friends with YMS? Yes. Obviously, Adam is an extremely dedicated moviegoer and knows a lot about them. But I mean, yeah, give me an opportunity to flex my my contact. Sure, if you want. You want me to flip the Rolodex in front of the screen? What do you want? Well, anyway, I doubt the tariffs are going to happen. But I do feel like we're kind of like gravitating towards a collapse in the industry. Movie guys aren't as loud, I guess, except for stuff like Star Wars. I just feel like when I hear people talk about video games, they seem to know a decent amount about video games. They're like fans of video games. They have strong opinions on them. When I hear people talk about comic books, likewise, they tend to be fans of them. They have strong opinions on comic books. They read them a lot. Same about anime and manga. When I see people post about anime or manga on Twitter or whatever, it seems like they know a lot. They're invested in the industry. When I see people post about movies, it seems like, oh yeah, I went and I saw the movie and it was bad and then I left. Like there's not a discussion about the broader industry or anything like that because it's just like the most casual moviegoer. But it seems like there's so many more casual moviegoers than there are casual people who engage with other media. I don't know. Maybe movies just got too big for their own good. Like they're too accessible, so they had to broaden their appeal to too many people. And as a consequence, now the whole industry is propped up on stilts because they expected that they would be like the only media people consumed. Like the expectations of the industry are kind of built on like it's the 1970s and, you know, 8 worthwhile movies come out a year and everyone wants to see all of them because what the f else are you doing? I don't know. Is accessibility a bad thing? I'm not talking about accessibility in the sense of like, can disabled people see movies? Yeah, they got the little like wheelchair spots in the center horizontal row. I'm talking about accessibility in the sense of like, in order to get into playing games, you have to have like, you have to get into them a little bit. But people see movies by default, right? If you just exist in culture and consume culture just kind of as it comes at you, it's like, oh, that's the new movie. And then you see the movie and it's like, okay, that's the movie. Maybe some degree of gatekeeping is actually necessary to preserve the integrity of a medium of art, because otherwise the industry will expand to the point that it assumes everyone's as invested in their medium as every other medium's fans are in that medium. I'd have to think about it, I guess. Now you're just yapping? No, I think there's something to that. I think there's something to that. Bosch trying so hard to be deep. Me dipping my toes 3 inches into the kiddie side of the pool. And your ass is like, holy shit, look at this guy trying to show off. You're revealing your own, the shallowness of your thoughts. You're not wrong, but you'd be more cohesive if you knew more about music, I think. Well, I don't, so there you go. I guess the conclusion that I derive from this long rambling segment on Trump's impossible movie tariff is that gatekeeping is good. There we go. That was fun. Yeah, I agree.